Hi guys, in this video we are talking about the question answer part of the book chapter called The Address. Okay, lesson number 2 that is. Okay, so let's start with the question number 1 of your textbook, which says that have you come back, said the woman. I thought that no one had come back. Does this statement give some clue about the story? If yes, what is it? So the quoted statement, that is have you come back, gives us a clue about the story. It means that the two families were acquaintance with each other. Means this shows that they were already familiar with each other. Okay, and during the war, as the many families left the land to take the refuge, many families they left to the other part of the countries to take the refuge in other places. Okay, while some of the families they stayed back at the same place. So Mrs. Darling thought that the family of Mrs. S, and who is Mrs. S? That is narrator's mom. Okay, died during the war, and that is why she gave such a cold reaction to the girl who came to visit her. Okay, so this is about the question number 1, and the question number 2. If you look, the question number 2 says the story is divided into pre-war and the post-war times. So what happens, do you think, to the girl underwent during these times? Okay, so what happened at pre and post time? So if we compare both the pre and the post war time, so the family of the girl was rich before the war. Okay, and they had valuable positions in their house. Okay, when the war started, Mrs. Darling established contact with them and started visiting them again. She started taking the positions, means whatever belongings they have, with her, and whenever she would visit, as she believed, if they would leave the place, such things should not be wasted. And she was thinking that this family is going to leave. Mrs. Darling thought that this family is going to leave this place. So whenever they will leave, so this kind of precious thing should not be get wasted. So the girl, the narrator suffered a lot. Okay, her mother died. Okay, that is Mrs. S. And she had to live in a rented place. She found it really difficult to go back to the place where her childhood was spent. And she wanted her belongings back. Okay, from whom? From Mrs. Darling. And when she went to meet Mrs. Darling, she noticed how the things were arranged in a tasteless manner. Okay, she could no longer contact or connect to them, and she lost her interest in them. And partially she was afraid. The girl finally decided to leave the house and forget her address. Okay, question number 3. That says that why did the narrator of the story want to forget the address? Okay, so Mrs. Darling, kept the valuable items in her house until the war was over, and she did not want them to lose during the war in case they decide to leave the place. Okay, so her mother gave her address of Miss Narrator's mother. She gave the address of Mrs. Darling house. Okay, that is 46 Marconi Street, and she remembered the address and decided to visit her anyway. Narrator, and she was afraid to visit the place again as it brought back many past memories. When she saw all the positions, all the things, all the belongings, they were arranged in a tasteless manner. Okay, and she lost the interest in them. So at that time, when the narrator saw that these things were not well maintained, so she lost the interest in them. She could not connect with the things and thought that she would not stay in that house any longer. So she would destroy the good memories she had with those items. She finally decided, what the narrator has finally decided, to forget the address and not to go back to that place. Okay, the address is the question number 4. The address is a story of the human predicament that follow the war. We have to comment on this. Okay, I have already told you what is the meaning of the word called predicament. Okay, something which is difficult to deal with, especially a situation. So the war was always bring a lot of sufferings to the human beings, no matter which war is there. And once if anybody, any country, any people, any group or organization is involved in that, so that cause harm to both the parties. And war brings them both the destruction and the death also. The address, the chapter, is based on the same theme. Okay, that during the war, all the belongings were taken by Mrs. Darling. who promised to keep them safe. And the mother of the narrator was she, Mrs. S. Okay, I can say the woman of the main protagonist. Okay, she died, and all the positions were left with the acquaintance, left with whom? With the Mrs. Dorling. Okay, and years later, the girl, means we are talking about the narrator, decided to visit the house of Mrs. Dorling. Okay, an address was given by Mrs. S. Okay, and as she thought, and as the narrator reached to the Mrs. Dorling's house, so Mrs. Dorling thought that everyone in her family had died. She was not aware about this thing that narrator is still alive. Okay, then the girl or the narrator wanted to take back her belongings from Mrs. Dorling's house. Okay, she did not allow even the girl to enter the house. She seemed like a woman who did not have any emotions. So the war leaves the world a world desolated, and it cannot be healed. Desolated means to empty or without people. Okay, so whenever there is a war, so it keeps the people like you cannot see anyone. So that is why this word called desolated is used over here. Right. So guys, this is all about the question answer part of this chapter, and I'm sure you will read your textbook, your reference books, and other whatever resources, source material you are available, you have with you. Okay, so concentrate on that. Maybe it's not 100% can be done over here, but whatever we are able to do it, we are doing at a level best for you guys. Alright, so all of you keep enjoying your time. Okay, bye bye.